All right, so Nick, the forecasts on your website are super intuitive, easy to kind of look through and walk through, but what are those features that you want folks to pay most attention to when they're looking at that avalanche forecast if they're headed out to Mount Shasta?
Yeah, with our avalanche forecast that we issue daily, um, probably the most important thing to understand and to read is that bottom line. So when you first bring up that forecast page, that's the first thing you see. And in that box, we try to summarize the avalanche hazard in a couple sentences. So if a user was to read one thing and one thing only, that's the information that we want them to know. And with that, you have a danger rating, and it's kind of like the good old stoplight color system. You know, green is generally pretty safe. We want folks to understand that low danger does not mean no danger, but that the overall risk is low. And then you have yellow, orange, red, and folks are pretty familiar with stoplights and what means go and what means don't go. So
Right, for sure. And so the forecast is very detailed. You can see kind of geographically directions where you see on the mountain faces specific threats. With such a topographically diverse landscape, what goes into building that forecast every day and knowing what those biggest threats are?
yeah, so what goes into building the forecast? We have 3 forecasters with the Mount Shasta Avalanche Center, and we are out, one of us is out every single day of the week in the field gathering firsthand snowpack and weather observations. We're talking to snowmobilers, talking to skiers, we're out there ourselves. We're gathering as much information as we can out in the field the day prior. That next morning, we take our information that we gathered. We have also a robust network of weather stations in the area, so we take real-time weather data, and then we look at weather forecasts from the National Weather Service and various other sources. So between our observations, our weather stations, and weather models, we put that all into what you know is the avalanche forecast for a 24-hour period issued at 7 a.m. every day.
Great. And so, at least from my understanding, the layers of precipitation have a profound impact on our avalanche threat. So, could you tell me a little bit more about what you look for in different types of precipitation and how that can impact, the stability of the mountain snow?
Yeah, and our snowpack here in the Northern California, Southern Oregon, really kind of the whole West Coast, we call it a maritime snowpack. We tend to get really deep, a deep snowpack, big storms, and by and large, our avalanche danger is immediately during and just after storms. So that is usually kind of that avalanche risk crescendo is right during storms. On occasion, we can get persistently weak layers of snow within the snowpack that can last, days or sometimes weeks after a storm. But generally speaking, the danger is highest right during or just after storms. Different types of weak layers. There's, start to get into the snow science aspect of it, and maybe spare everyone on that stuff for now. But just recently, the weak layer that we experienced was a layer of grauple. And grauple are those little round snow grains. They kind of act like ball bearings. And we had a brief period of grauple snowfall on Friday, and then that was all buried by the weekend storm. And we saw several avalanches slide on that weak layer.
And as your website mentioned, those 4 avalanches were all big enough to potentially bury, injure, and kill somebody out there. So what are your tips to folks if they're out there in the backcountry or really anywhere on the mountain to survive an avalanche should one happen?
Yeah, to survive an avalanche, you need 3 things, actually 4 things. You need an avalanche beacon. This is not a spot device or personal locating beacon. This is a specific tool, an avalanche transceiver, avalanche beacon that you get from snow-based manufacturers, and it's a device used to find your friend. You need an avalanche probe, you need a shovel, and then you need a partner. You can have all this gear, but it's not going to do any good if you're by yourself. So, the partner and a partner that knows how to use this stuff is your best defense in surviving an avalanche. You have about 10 minutes to to survive buried beneath an avalanche. And so your partner needs to be acting fast and efficiently in order to dig you up in time. Past 10 minutes, your chances of survival are really tough. Should you get caught in an avalanche, one of the best things to do is just, try to stay calm and fight for your life too. If you can grab a tree or ski off the slab or do anything to arrest yourself from that avalanche, do it. It's, essentially do your best to try to stay on top of the snow. It is very difficult to do so, and that's where a savvy partner is really important in a case like this. Sometimes people often get injured just from trauma too. You may not get buried, but you could hit a tree, go over a cliff. So really what we're trying to preach is just not to get caught in an avalanche in the first place, because that's a really bad place to be.
For sure. And so you mentioned that these storm slabs are kind of the most typical form of avalanche that we see around here, and that threat is the biggest in those days just following the storm. But as we head into this extended week of dry weather and that threat kind of subsides a bit, are there any things folks should look out for if they're headed out to ski or even head out into the backcountry these next couple days?
Yeah, the avalanche danger is definitely fallen off. And this morning we issued low avalanche danger below tree line and moderate danger near and above. Really, any time of the year, any place in the world, users who go out into the winter backcountry should learn to recognize the 5 red flags of avalanche danger. These are true in any snowpack and anywhere, like I said, in the world. And one of the best signs of avalanche danger is recent avalanche activity. If you see an avalanche, that is Mother Nature's neon flashing sign that says, more avalanches are possible. What aspect is it on? What elevation? You should not be skiing similar aspect slopes if you see an avalanche wherever you're at. The second one is cracking or collapsing sound. So as you're working through, your tour in the backcountry, whether it's on skis or snowshoes or snowmobile, if you see cracking in the snowpack or hear whumping sounds, that's a sign of a weak layer collapsing, a slab that's possible, and you should definitely take note of that. Third one is strong winds. Wind is extremely good at transporting snow and loading it onto leeward terrain. So anytime it's windy and you see blowing snow, that's a red flag. We can get avalanches after a storm from wind transporting snow. The fourth red flag is heavy snowfall. So kind of like what we saw this weekend, we got about 2.5 feet starting Friday night through Saturday afternoon, evening. And that's just a lot of snow over a short period of time. And the snow does not like rapid change. And then the last one is rapidly rising temps. So we did get a brief warm up on Sunday. We had a bunch of fresh snow. It warmed up a bit. That creates weight in the snowpack, and sometimes the snow just can't support that. So that was a bit long-winded, but those 5 red flags of avalanche danger are what people should learn to recognize any day of the year.
That's great to know. Yeah, thank you. So just want to ask you if there's anything else you'd like folks to know about the work that your team does there. I think it's a pretty fascinating forecasting type of career. So yeah, anything you'd like folks to know?
Yeah, I think check the forecast. Like before you do anything, just make it your morning ritual to wake up, grab your coffee, read the forecast. You can read just the bottom line, but we strongly encourage people to read the full forecast. There's a lot of details and a lot of learning that people can then glean from that. And even if you're not going out skiing, just kind of keeping track of what's going on out there in the snowpack is a really good idea. If you're going to go out into the backcountry, you've got to have the beacon, shovel, and probe and know how to use that. The Mount Shasta Avalanche Center offers free avalanche awareness courses and free avalanche transceiver rescue beacon courses all throughout the winter. So take an awareness course, learn how to use your tools. That's one of your best defenses for staying safe out there. And then, lastly, we might issue a considerable or high avalanche danger day. That doesn't mean you need to sit on the couch all day. That just means that you really need to be mindful of terrain. So terrain steepness, slope steepness is the #1 best skill that you can have out in the backcountry to stay out of avalanche terrain. You can go out on high avalanche danger days, stay in low angle terrain, and come home to live another day. So yeah, those things are really important. And avalanche education, it's a lifelong endeavor. It never ends. So there's always something to learn, and a lot of that learning can be had just from reading our daily forecast.